Howdy, folks. Windy City Thetan Watch. We're here in the studio tonight. We've got a great guest with us tonight. We've got Mona, you know her as Fat Grammy, and we're going to talk about some updates in the booptology case that's coming on. Before we get to that, let me just play the intro real quick for you.
We won't let them take control. Guard the streets and guard your soul. Windy City Thetan Watch, standing tall, we won't be caught. No cold gonna claim our town. In the breeze we bring them down.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Again, what I want to do is we'll bring Mona Fat Grammy to the stage, and we'll start our discussion. So if everybody will please join me in welcoming Mona.
Hi, everybody.
Howdy,
Welcome to
Mona.
the world of humidity and heat.
Yes. Although with all my neighbors, we're all very pleasantly surprised by how nice it's been out these past few days, right? I don't mind the heat so much, but I like the 75 to 80 much more than I like the 85 to 90. So
Or the -40. Yeah.
correct. We're just going to ignore winters for us. So that's never any fun. So, all right, folks, before we get started, I want to remind everybody to head over to Fat Grammy, and she's got an amazing YouTube channel out there. You've oftentimes heard me say this, that right, we have a community here, and we all do different things very, very well, but that doesn't mean that we're all the same in regards to what's going on. So, right, many of you see me out on the streets and I protest, and there's plenty of protesters out there. Well, I'm unequipped if I don't have the former Scientologists and second gens that are giving us information about Scientology. And then there's more people, right? We've got the audience that's always helping us remember what we've forgotten as we're out there. But then you've got some certain players like Mona, Fat Grammy as well, that are they just know so much about how did I do the research? How do I find out about the civil procedures? How do I find out the laws? They just are incredibly strong research folks. And it's very helpful for us to have this information whenever we're looking for it. Or usually we just ask out into the ether, and between Fat Grammy, Audit LA, several others, right? You get those responses that come back from the ether, and we really appreciate that for her. So if you have a chance to, please make sure you get over to Fat Grammy and subscribe. So tonight, we're going to do a bit of an update. There has been movement in the Nance Drew booptology case, and again, I wouldn't say that I'm overly comfortable with that word, but I'm going to say that the people that are involved in it are okay with this. So I'm not I'm not trying to be degrading or demeaning in any way with that. But before we get to the new events, I kind of like to roll through what the history of this has been so far. So we'll kind of look at the players involved in this, the major players that are involved in this, and then we'll look at the chronology of what's gone on. You've seen me do some of the reports after we've been in the court, and I've run through what occurred that day in court. Hopefully we'll also be able to go through those just to get you a taste for what it's like to be in those settings. So
Kind of a sneak peek view of what's been happening. Sneak
absolutely.
peek.
Absolutely. Let me stop that screen share. I want to represent another one. Yeah, none of those pages, none of those pages. Oh, where did that go for? Oh, there it was. I saw it. So again, tonight we're going to talk about BOOBGATE, booptology, and the players involved in this. So for those of you that aren't aware, right, back in earlier this year, there was an incident where the protesters and demonstrators were out on the streets, and we were using chalk to portray some messages that we wanted to share about Scientology to the people that were walking by in that space. And on the events that occurred that day, there was a claim that Nance Drew has an amazing power that she was able to assault, allegedly, one of the members of Scientology, Chadwick Burke, with, get this, a breasticle. Now, one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting that day was the original claim was it was a hand. And then there were plenty of people on scene that were demonstrating, and they had plenty of video. They showed the video that the hands never got anywhere near the alleged victim in this space. And Scientology and the police went back indoors, had another powwow for another 30, 45 minutes, and came out, we got it. It wasn't a hand. It was Nance Drew's breast that was able to make contact, allegedly, in this situation. So, do you remember the day, or were you watching, or you've just seen it on replay, Mona?
I happened to be watching that day. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was surreal that it could be happening, and you would think you were watching it take place, and you went, oh, they're going to laugh it off and they're just going to leave and they're going to go, oh, that's stupid. That's silly. That's just outrageous. And that's not the way it turned out. So it was surreal.
Absolutely. Again, this is from a recollection of months gone by, but I remember some of the original officers really didn't have any interest in what was, there's no here, or there's no there, as they would say.
Right.
And Scientology just kept on begging, beseeching them to, there's something here. Look what they did. Look what they did, or look what occurred here. So
yeah. And then the officers, what caught me was it was almost that they were not wanting to do it, but because they didn't want to do it, they started mocking her. It's like they were picking on her that they had to arrest her. Like, we're just going to do it anyways. It was they were mocking her.
absolutely. That was demeaning, right? And the idea that that is not the way the police should act. Even if it was somebody who there was a preponderance of evidence that something was going wrong or there was a crime involved, the police aren't there to mock you. They're supposed to be enforcing the law and executing the terms of the law, right? That's all that they're supposed to be there for. They're not supposed to be playing commentary or running commentary on these types of activities.
And I know I have a question for, is it Joe Cool?
Yep.
That he seems to know the law really well there, and you may know this yourself, but I know we were researching it, and in LA, working on their documents and with the LAPD, they, in order to arrest for a misdemeanor, they have to witness the crime. And if not, then it has to be under a PPA, a personal protection or a personal arrest. And they didn't witness the crime. So how did they arrest her under a misdemeanor? Unless it's okay in Chicago to do that.
Yeah, I do not know that well enough. I'm going to make a supposition, and by the way, I'm sure that it's going to be incorrect, but I am going to make this a supposition anyhow, because it was on video. That my expectation is they were inside looking at cameras, the Scientology cameras that were in there, and at that point, it almost makes them an eyewitness because it is a visual representation of what occurred there. It wasn't just hearsay or he said, she said type situations that were going on there. Okay, volumes are uneven. Let me see if I can push. And I don't know, can anybody mention who might be louder or who might be softer? All right, I'm gonna
volume wise.
until, yeah. Oh, now I hear you're coming in pretty low. Oh, that was because I turned up my headphones. That's why you came in loud. Yeah, I see somebody there saying that we've got an issue with the volume.
Well, sometimes I am very much too loud. So just let me know and I'll quiet it down if I need to.
Okay. I'm going to I'm going to back up a little bit, see if that helps us out a little bit. I've got one person saying that I'm too loud and one person saying I'm too quiet. I'm struggling. All right, let's look at the players involved on this in this event. So, of course, we've got Nance Drew, and many of you know that she's somebody who demonstrates here in Chicago. She's been here since the very beginning, opening day. That she's been out there very staunchly until I would say her free speech has been stifled by what's going on with this case, right? In regards to what's going on, even before the court elements hit there, it's a chilling effect to have the police arrest you. And my expectation is it's very challenging to come back from that and not feel a little bit like, oh, is it okay for me to be out here? So I think it's absolutely understandable that people would be fearful. I think fearful is the right term, to come back and demonstrate out on the streets after having been violated by the police in such a way.
Certainly intimidation played a factor and is playing a factor. Yeah.
Right. So Nance was out there, right? There was plenty of people. I think that Korn was out there. Maybe Juanita was out there. I do remember that day I had family in town and I was unavailable and kind of had made I'd let all the people that are in the community know that I wouldn't really be there that day. But later on that night, when I did get the phone call and that she had been taken to the police station, I was, finally my family headed off to sleep, and I was able to head down and see what we could do to help win her freedom from the arrest that was going on. The next person is Chadwick Burke, and again, folks, I hope you understand that my tongue is firmly planted in my cheek in this regard. All right, then I'll eat my mic now. That our poor victim, who is allegedly assaulted by breasts somehow, Chadwick Burke. I really like this picture because it shows the menial work that a Scientologist is doing. You see that he's also got his headphones in, right, so that he can't hear the truth that is being chanted on the streets as we're out there demonstrating in this space. And then this is Joe Cicala. Now, Joe Cicala wasn't involved in the incident itself, but he absolutely inserted himself into this situation. So, Joe Cicala, just to remind everybody, his son is the executive director at Chicago. And his other children, he's got, I think, 5 adult children. They are all members of Scientology. They all are staff members in Chicago. Additionally, he is the founder of an organization called Dream Exchange. And they're a private stock exchange that claims to be minority owned or minority operated is a term that they use. And it's that, Joe Cicala is not a minority. His partner is, so maybe we understand why he has a partner. Many people, I always hear very positive stories about his partner. Now, his partner has taken on several of the pre-clear courses as well in this situation.
Right. And Dream Exchange is a private equity firm that provides, it's the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones in a private setting. So same thing as NASDAQ or Dow Jones.
Excellent. Thank you. A couple of other things that are very interesting. If you look at his bar association profile, when he joined the bar or the last time he updated his bar profile, his email address is Kretschmer Cicala Law is the name of the firm, or is his email address. And for those of you that remember, back in 2005, when they started fundraising for the Ideal Org here in Chicago, Randy Kretschmar, who's an attorney that is basically somebody who helps you not have to undergo psychiatric evaluation, so he's anti-psychiatry, psychiatric medicines. Do we know anybody else or any other organizations involved in this story that might have that same stance?
You
Yeah.
didn't hear the
And
very last part of that.
oh, yeah. Do we know anybody else in this in this story, or any organizations in this story that also might be anti-psychiatry, anti-psychology, and anti-psychiatric meds?
Right
So,
to the T. Yep. Fits them right in there.
yep. So, and but this lawyer and he were partners. Well, they were in a law firm together. Sakela, this dream exchange, it sheds enormous amounts of money, and it's one of the ways that they're able to fund this organization. So he's an incredibly generous donor to Scientology, especially here in Chicago.
And I have somebody researching stuff in the background here. California, the cop has to witness the misdemeanor unless there's a warrant. But in Chicago, it seems like they can if they feel there's probable cause.
Excellent. And as I noted at the top, you just ask a question, and I love how the ether solves this problem for us. That's awesome. Let's kind of get to just a chronology of what's gone on so far in this case. Some of the dates I don't have, and I'm going to say they're principally in order. But what we'll know is that on April 28th, the incident occurred outside of the Ideal org. And hopefully I've set the stage there. If there are any other questions about that, definitely go ahead and add those to the chat, and we'll try to pick those up. But then, a month later, we have the first court appearance. And we'll talk about that. So the first court appearance, May 20th, it was dismissed, but it can be recharged. So let me kind of hide that for a minute, and we'll talk about that just a little bit.
And I believe Chadwick didn't show up for that appearance, correct?
100%
Because
correct.
he was sick or he had relatives that were sick, right?
Yeah, and the way that we learned of that was interesting. So we're in court on that day, and by the way, this is an appropriate or normal amount of time that would pass between an incident and a court appearance. So 1 month is rather there's nothing abnormal about what's going on here. So we get to court that day, and we walk in, and Nance and her lawyer are there. The lawyer is a well-credentialed lawyer. He's been a lawyer for a great deal of time. He started out as a prosecutor in the state's attorney's office, and then became a criminal defense attorney, defending extremely violent crimes up to and the including end-of-life type assailants in this situation. So he's been inside of a courtroom before. This person is no joke. I will say that he looked like the absent-minded professor, white-haired wizard, a wizened person. In regards to that, he would tell some phenomenal stories, right? That he was around during the Operation Grey Lord, which was the judge bribing and lawyer kickback scheme that went on many years ago here in Chicago. So, but as the day, he's trying to explain to Nance, and I'm a fly on the wall in this conversation. Nance knows I'm there. She was aware that I would be there. She didn't have any issues with that, and she allowed me to listen in on what was being said. And just here's kind of what's going to happen. We'll be up there. All of this is going to go on. We do look around the courtroom, and there is no Nance Drew. I'm sorry, there is no Chadwick Burke. So that was interesting, right? There's no Chadwick Burke, but at one point they call the case, and the state's attorney says, "Is complaining witness, Chadwick Burke here?" No response. I can't remember. I think the judge just said, "Okay, well, dismissed," right away. And then Joe Sakela stood up, and as a friend of the court, I guess, he said, "Oh, there's been a family emergency, and he was unable to make it." So Chadwick Burke was unable to make it. So this is the first entrance of Joe Sakela. Again, he is a bar certified lawyer in Illinois, but he was the one that told the judge that right? That Chadwick Burke was not there and that there was a family emergency, and that's why he was not there. That would seemingly be the end of it. The case was dismissed. Now, in Chicago, when it's dismissed, and this would be without prejudice, so there was no jury was seated, no actions were taken yet. You can refile this up to 180. I think it was 180, maybe it's 160, but some large amount of time. You're allowed to refile that claim in this space. And at this. At this same court appearance, Joe Cicala went up and sidebarred with the state's attorney, and he made statements roughly like, hey, we need to bring this back. They've been out there protesting our church every day since it's been open, right? And woe is me, sad us. But again, just trying to win over or curry favor with the state's attorney at that point in time. So that's the first court appearance. We kind of leave there a little bit relieved. Nance is relieved naturally because dismissed. And then I can't remember how quickly, but we very quickly learned that the state's attorney refiled the charges. So, Nance is back on the hot seat because the state's attorney is going to is refiling the charges. In this particular case. So there is another appearance that occurs, and I was not at this particular occurrence, but if you remember, the way that Nance described it was that Chadwick Burke was there, and he looked very disheveled, unclean shaven, right? So normally he's got a fairly professional look about him, but he looked very disheveled, very unclean in that space. And that was the first time since before the court date that we had seen Chadwick Burke anywhere near Chicago. We have still not seen him at the org. So he must have come in, chances are he was taken out of jurisdiction about a month before the court date. And he was brought in because I don't think the judge would have been at all happy had we seen a no-show again from a complaining witness.
They must have tunnels in Chicago too.
Absolutely. We do. It's called the Pedway, right? No, but yeah, there are. So just so everybody's clear, I made a joke. There are no tunnels underneath the Ideal Org in Scientology or in Chicago. Okay. So that complaint comes and goes, and it's just it's continued, right? So okay, great, we're going to move forward with this. Then comes the July 8th appearance. So on July 8th, we have yet another appearance, right? Now, on July 8th, I was there again. Chadwick Burke was not in court. The two arresting officers were not in court. Now, the two arresting officers were there the first day. They were not here on this day. This is another situation where Joe Cicala inserted himself into the situation that, hey, no complaining witness. Let's, we should dismiss this again. But Joe Cicala, talks with the state's attorney.
Whispered into his ear again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
It to me, I thought that he had standing there. It was after this court date that I realized I could have gone and talked to the state's attorney just the same. I didn't know that that was a privilege that anybody really in the courtroom could do if the state's attorney wanted to entertain a conversation with you in that situation. Now, there was a lot that went on here, and I'm gonna bounce ahead for a couple of slides real quick, and I just want to kind of go over quickly what occurs, right? So we arrive at court. Nance is there. Juanita's there. Nance's partner is there. The court starts at 9 a.m. Nance's lawyer isn't there, but Nance knows this. He said, hey, I'm late. I'm running in traffic. By the way, that's not terrible, right? The idea that if your lawyer isn't there at the start of the session, all that happens is when they call your name, you're going to say my lawyer's not here yet, and they'll just push you back onto the dock, right? That you'll be called later in this process. And quite honestly, since the lawyer wasn't there, she wasn't called early anyhow, because the lawyer usually signs themselves in, and that's what brings those lawyer-based cases up to the front of the docket. At about 10 after 9, I see Joe Cicala peek in, and he does this 3 or 4 times. That, okay, great. What is this tool doing here again? The case is called, no complaining witness, it's dismissed. In the lobby afterwards, we're out there in the lobby, and Joe Cicala's out there across the lobby from us. Nancy and her partner and I are right, and I think Style A1 Audit is there. We're right outside the court doors in the lobby of the courthouse. When Nance's lawyer walks in the front door, Joe Cicala says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And instead of walking straight forward to Nance, his client, this attorney turns around and goes and has a conversation with Joe Cicala first. And that was very alarming to me. I will say that after the fact, Nance was not exactly pleased that this had occurred either in that situation. It just felt odd that why would you talk to not the opposing counsel, but somebody who sided with the opposing counsel in this situation. Cicala and the lawyer talk and all sorts of fun stuff. Cicala goes into the courtroom. He does talk with the state's attorney. Now, this state's attorney is different than the state's attorney we had at the very first court appearance. Cicala goes up and talks to the state's attorney, sharing their phone, their email. They're trying to talk about a date in September that they want to push this towards. Joe Cicala is pressuring the state's attorney in this particular space. Let me go one more page. Shortly after that interaction, Joe Cicala is about to walk away from the bench or the bar that separates the people who are watching court from the state's attorney and the judge. And he's going to walk towards the back. And as he's walking back, he's giving a glaring look towards me and Nance's partner. And I don't recognize this because he ends up stopping behind me. And because Nance's partner and I are having a discussion, I don't notice this, but she's looking over my head and sees this guy staring at her. And so she just waves. Joe Cicala, again, woe is me. Hey, was that a threat? Are you threatening me? I'm going to go outside and I'm going to bring the sheriff in right now, and we're going to take care of this. I was like, okay, who peed in your Cheerios today, and what are you talking about in this situation? A wave is never considered a threat in my understanding. He goes out. He's going to talk to the sheriffs that are outside the door, right, who man the door right into the screening to come in. And I very quickly go out just the same because I want to hear what kind of short story he's going to be telling to these people. And he says, hey, these people were in the court and they tried to threaten me. And I waved to the sheriff, as I generally do. The sheriff looked, and he just didn't want any part of it. That nobody believed what Cicala was saying. So, but it was just interesting that, you know, he was trying to intimidate us, that I can go get the police to bear on you at any time I want to. So, didn't like that. They talk for several minutes. Nance's case is recalled, and they set it for a date August 5th, right? Nance gets what's equivalent to a TRO. Now, it wasn't a TRO, so all of you legal scholars out there, I understand it wasn't a TRO, but she was told, you need to stay away from the church. I found this very puzzling because she didn't, her boob didn't touch a building, right? Or allegedly touch a building. It's an individual that is on the other side of this claim. So why is she being eliminated or prevented from going anywhere near the church, right?
That's a great point. And unless that's his place of employment. Right. But they don't state that, do they?
They didn't say that. And maybe they talked about it silently. Maybe that's what they were talking about up there. But the other thing I'll say is that he hasn't shown up to his place of employment for, at this point, 3 months, right? So it would be erroneous of them to say, to me, I think that's erroneous or a lie to say that he's employed there.
Well, I'm sure if Osa's watching, he'll be there tomorrow. He'll be working tomorrow.
I'll take that bet. But and yes, I
Front and
think
center.
yeah, I do think Osa is there, or Osa is watching. By the way, hi Osa. And then, but the other somewhat positive news here is that discovery can start, right? So that's what I think we find the good news about this particular date or episode. Let me back up a little bit to the. So the next significant milestone in this is there's another court hearing, but it's going to be an appearance by Zoom, right? And in fact, I mean, you might know a little bit about this. I was not part of this particular. I wasn't invited to the Zoom meeting, and nor should I have been invited to the Zoom meeting. I'm not a party to this in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if those are actually public forum. Like if it's any different than if I wanted to sit in a courtroom. If they are sharing a court session via Zoom, can anybody join that? I don't know that answer.
Honestly, I believe you can as long as you have the call-in number
Okay.
and the code to get in. And if you have the call-in number and the code to be there, then you could. And I think 8/5, Nancy said, was her day of that hearing. So August 5th.
Yep. Yes. And I remember her saying that as well. Now, something that came out of that was that there was a gag order. My understanding, it's a very vague gag order, but it was basically that through discovery, well, you know a little bit more about this, I think, Mona.
Well, the gag order, what the attorney said was for her not to discuss the case on social media. And so his interpretation of that was zero social media. So basically he's saying she can't get on there and bake cakes and talk about baking a recipe. No matter what it is, he just said no social media whatsoever. That does need to be clarified 100%.
Yeah. And by the way, I think that's an egregious overstatement, and it's an incorrect. Just so we're all clear, y'all know I'm not a lawyer, right? I have no legal studying, no legal background, but that just seems to be an egregious violation of the First Amendment. And I will say that there's a case I was following in Florida, a guy named What the Hales. He buys expired, or if you don't pay your fee on your storage space, they'll auction off that storage space to pay those fees.
Right.
He's got a
Storage
case
wars.
right, like Storage Wars, right?
Yeah.
He has a case going on in Florida, and what had happened there was the judge definitely was biased towards him. That judge has since been kicked off of the case in that space, but the judge said you can't go on social media, and it was like, wait, that's my First Amendment right. I can do whatever I want to. I understand you saying I can't talk about this case, but for telling me that I can't go on social media, that seems like an abuse of power, and you're chilling my freedom of speech.
Definitely an overreach. And I have to apologize if you guys can hear that. My lovely dog is snoring at the end of the bed. So
Nice.
it's either mute him or talk.
Yes. Everybody in this chat loves dogs, so we're all fine with that. And by the way, no matter what your answer is, say you love dogs. All right. Then there's this odd occurrence that shows up just a little bit later on. I'll put it back up there on September 8th and 9th. Right. At this point, the lawyer lets Nance know that she has a court date the next day. She gets a call on Sunday night. Right. There's conversations. She gets called that, hey, you're supposed to be in court tomorrow. And they do the appearance. I think that this was another Zoom appearance or another remote
It was
appearance.
another Zoom.
Yep.
Another surprise.
Yeah. And you know what? We didn't mention this, but there was earlier, I think on the refiling, so just before the July 8th scenario, what had happened was this particular court, or the case was refiled. Nance was not notified. Her attorney was not notified. And that they were like, hey, if you show up to court, great. And if you don't, we're probably going to have a default judgment in this particular situation. I'm still not sure how that got refiled without notifications. That feels like you're now violating procedure problems, or you have
Now
a
that you brought
procedure.
that up, yep, I remember that. Yes.
No idea where that went. I don't know if Nance's lawyer wanted to pursue that. And again, I would say that how many battles do you want to fight at the same time? That I always
Right.
tell people that, try to concentrate on this battle. Cats are okay too, but dogs are awesome. Now, when Nance, goes to the appearance and she's not called, and she finds out that her lawyer's a no-show, but she also finds out that she's not on the calendar. Calendar, docket, I think, are the same terms as we're going through here. So that was just an odd element. Like, what's going on there? Why?
It was.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we come to the breaking news, right? So we now know some more information that's going to that
Can,
has arisen.
can you back up just a
Yep,
tad about the
absolutely.
discovery?
Yes.
So within this, when she was gagged, the attorney was given a thumb drive of the discovery so that way they could start working on the claim, the case, her defense. And it was encrypted, so he wasn't able to open it. And he went to several different places, several different law libraries to try and get it opened. And he still couldn't. He eventually went to the SA, not the sexual abuse, to the state's attorney. And I'm not too sure if he got it open there and was able to discover that, because this is that same time frame. So we're still not sure what's on that discovery thumb drive.
Right. That I know nothing about court or this kind of discovery, but it very much sounds like, well, if you give me discovery and it's encrypted and you haven't given me a way to open it, have you given me discovery?
Right. And is it just a stall method? And I did ask the question. I said, well, if it's you that's the defense, then why can't I have the thumb drive? It's if it's me, then I'm the
Right.
perpetrator supposedly. How come I can't have the and you would think that would be common sense. Oh no, that's, not common sense in legal world. I guess the attorney has to keep um possession of it and can't give it to the person.
Yeah, I believe that to be true as well, that there's a relationship or an expectation of attorney who's a officer of the court, and there are some protective actions that they must take in order in certain situations. But I think that what are alluding to, what if Nance Drew is pro se and she's both the attorney and the the client in that situation, right?
And the other portion of that, when she was given the gag order, and something that upset Nancy, and I know, she said we could talk about things, is that her attorney mentioned something about her protesting a religion, which stop. No, no, it wasn't. It wasn't protesting a religion. It was freedom of speech, and she was demonstrating the abuses of religion. And there's a huge difference. And Osa, if you're listening, there you go. It is not
Absolutely.
not a protest of anybody's religion. Anybody can, you have the right to feel, pray, worship, whatever your beliefs are your beliefs. It's the abuse that comes out of it.
100%. Many of the people that we see on the streets, and I'm going to say that I think that I do this rather frequently and rather often. I have no care or concern about the beliefs of Scientology. Now, I will tell you that I think that their training mechanisms and their mind control type behaviors are damaging to your brain. And yes, I do have a problem with that, but I don't really care about their space opera or anything of that nature. It's the crimes and abuses that they wield upon people and the fraud, right? The financial fraud of, both they're not a charitable organization. They do nothing for the community. We've got the Chase Wave that's out there. They've had several other elements where they are, let me check my volume again. So sorry about this. All right, I just jacked it all the way up. Hopefully that's
I
better.
think your volume is fine, but that's
Okay. So that, I've said this fairly frequently. I don't care about their beliefs. I care about the crimes and abuses that they perpetrate upon their members and others. And those are the things that I can't abide by, and the things that I'm demonstrating against and rallying against in these situations. Now well, let's see here. Yeah, I think we're caught up, and we've got the events of last night, right?
yes, we do.
Okay.
We need to talk about that. So as of yesterday, poor Nancy received information that her attorney had some medical issues recently, and that he was going to be too ill and it would cause too much stress to continue. He didn't outright say he was going to quit. I would hope that she would just take it as a resignation and move on from there. But yes, he is definitely too stressed, and it is causing him medical issues.
Yeah.
What a nice thing to have happen with 10 days and counting.
Yeah. The timing of this, when we say coincidental, it's in the words of Leroy J. Gibbs, there is no coincidence, right?
Yeah.
That it's disappointing that you're right, that you would go to the 11th hour and then retreat in this situation, and you're putting your client in a terrible position, because now your client is stuck with some very quick decisions that have to be made, right? Do I represent myself? Do I go find another attorney? How do I find another attorney? What am I going to do in this situation? So it's shameful that this is going on.
Well, you look at it from both sides. I feel for the gentleman. I wish him well. I wish him no ill will whatsoever. But professionally, if you're in that situation when somebody else's life, and I know this is a misdemeanor, but it's her life. It's her life.
Yep.
And when you're a professional in that situation, you say, I'm sorry, maybe I can't do this tomorrow. Here's my replacement, or here's some alternate methods. This is what we need to do. There's just got to be more communication than so sorry, so sad, see you later.
Yep. I 100% agree. And I'd say there's some interesting conversation. I'm going to bring up a couple of these chats real quick. So
Sure.
On this one, it's that not necessarily she had two attorneys. She did have another referral, and she was in a decision-making process. I think that she was talking to a couple of people at that same time, right, in regards to that. And then, Serge, welcome in. Great to have you here. There should be some element of a refund for this retainer, right? Now, I don't know, work was done, so it makes sense that an amount of the retainer should have been consumed. But yeah, if whatever remaining amount on that retainer is left, it should be coming back, right? I don't know how quickly that comes back. If the lawyer is in poor health, how well is he maintaining his office and all of that type of work that's going through there.
Right. And with the hearing being in the next discovery hearing coming up in short order, right now may not be the time to fight that battle. I mean, it's definitely a battle, but it may not be today that that's getting fought.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
So one of the things that I want to make sure, right, we've known for quite some time that there's a link tree for Nance, and if this is something that you feel you can get behind and you have the wherewithal to help, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at Nance Drew's link tree, and we've probably seen it a couple of times in here. You'll also see it in the description of my video. I'm not sure if it's in Mona's, but if need be, we can always add it to the description after the fact.
I don't have it in mine only because I don't have any mods in there that can link it. But if you
No
put
problem.
it in yours, I'll link it in there again.
Cool. Yep. Nice. And let's see here. And I think it's very straightforward. I think her link tree is just straight up. I'll just post it as the comment here, right? So it's just straight up Nance Drew if you want to go over to Linktree and help out.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I hope that everybody is hearing here, that we're unveiling, and again, unveiling is not fair. We've all known how pathetic this organization is and how deceptive this organization is in regards to what's going on. And don't think that Nance is a unicorn and that she's the only one being singled out here. These things that are happening to Nance right now, they can and will happen to many other people in this group, and we know people that have been fair gamed, and I'll use just generally the term fair game, whether or not it's the second gen and the X's that have come out or other protesters that have come out. We've seen people, Tori Magoo, right? Hey, yeah, they just screw around with her garden gnomes, but that's a big deal. That's a psychological element to know that somebody's kind of messing around in your world. Please.
Can I name
Okay.
off some of those cases?
Yeah, please do.
Let's do a round robin around the United States of everything that's been going on. This isn't everything. This is just some of them. Is Costner versus Good, Costner versus Hochstetter, COS, Church of Scientology versus Hochstetter. And I use Church of Scientology rather than knowing the people's names. Joey versus Good, Church of Scientology versus Denver J, versus Danny's Impact, versus Literally Michael, versus Marini. Down in Austin, we have Pearl Snappy and Selfish Self. Up in Philadelphia, we have Cubs Champion. We have Marini. In Salt Lake City, we have Love is Love. Up in San Francisco, we had DOA. We had Ashley. There's plenty more I know that I'm missing. But if that's not telling you that, what if Church of Scientology put out a memo to all of the orgs saying, do what you need to do to cause TROs or cause lawsuits or cause litigations to keep these demonstrators at bay? I don't know, but I think I might put a RICO in there or something like that.
I agree. It does seem like an ongoing criminal conspiracy across many boundaries and borders. This, I really agree with what Pinche Becky is saying here, right? That, and it is an intimidation mechanism, right? Even if it's not legally standing, you do not want a big ogre coming up to you and threatening you. I will say the past weekend, right, we had the two large men that came late on Sunday, that whether they were Scientology private eyes or whatever, that they tried to stand between me and the police, and they did invade my personal space. They also, they followed some of the demonstrators home from that event, or at least to where their transportation points were. So, Scientology does love to hire other people and again, degrees of separation so that their hands look to remain clean in these situations.
I like Serge's comment. He just said they write commendations to the people that are creating the illegal situation. Mm-hmm.
Yep. That, when we think about safe pointing, that they're not going to pay, they sometimes will pay the police officer straight up, here's $5,000. But what you'll also see is they're going to sponsor a Little League trophy or they're going to find out that the officer's wife has a charity that they cherish, and there's going to be a donation made in the officer's name to that charity from the Church of Scientology. And these are not quite quid pro quo, but they're as darn close as you can get in these situations. And those are a few, like, again, I think that if we stood here for an hour, we wouldn't hit 1% of all of the things in this scenario of these kinds of mischievous behavior.
Definitely agreed. But it's definitely something that I think that they are thinking that we're just not going to rally around our folks.
Right.
And I keep saying this is that we're not a group, but we are definitely an open crowdsource, which isn't a group. Open crowdsource is not a group. It is a GoFundMe where nobody knows anything about anybody. You're just there for the same reason. And the reason
Absolutely.
is abuse, neglect, child trafficking, elder abuse. Can't say it enough.
Right. One of the things I've said this before, and I'm going to say, since Serge is here, I hope that he hears me say this, that we've heard many people say what their number one reason for being against Scientology is. That if you listen to Tori Magoo, right, it's that that she realized they were curtailing freedom of speech. You've got Serge Delmar, child abuse, right? That the child abuse and the human trafficking are what's there. Laura FM, same thing. Aaron, right? The separation of families. Please don't think that that is the only reason they care about it, and they don't care about other reasons. Serge Delmar doesn't like that there's financial fraud going on there. He doesn't like that there is elder abuse going on there. But his passionate point of focus is child abuse. And I think that people all the time try to pit us against one another, saying that, well, Aaron doesn't like child, or Aaron's okay with child abuse because he says that family separation is his primary element. No. He hates all of the elements. It's just that he's most passionate because the thing that affected him most by this cult
Right.
was family disconnection. So, please don't try to pit everybody against one another because we hate Scientology for the wrong reason, right? Or that your
Who is it?
reason's better.
Nora coined the phrase, it's not a trauma Olympics. Definitely not a trauma Olympics.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, I feel very strongly about that. Yeah, there are plenty of reasons that I don't like the Church of Scientology. I've known about Scientology for a long time. I just thought they were a crazy thought element. I didn't know about the crimes and abuses until probably 2 years ago, and that's when I kind of stood up and said, "Well, I can stand up against this. That's no problem." Right. All right. Let's go. I'm sorry. I've taken us off track. So let's get back to
Okay.
Nance Drew in this situation. That yes, that she's probably going to need some financial help in regards to what's going on there. But I've seen it a few times in here. Do any of you know lawyers that are in the Chicago area or could take up a case of this type or kind in that situation? Do what? Don't think that money is the only way that helps in this scenario, right? She's going to be crushed for time in order to be able to put up a stiff defense about what's coming against her, right? And what are some of the other ways that we might be able to help?
Well, somebody had asked me about, first of all, on a civil defense, that pro se, which means you go and you represent yourself, would be probably fine in this situation. But if you're having to go against a criminal defense, state attorney, that if nothing else, at least for this next discovery, ask coming up on Monday, and this is just an option. It's something that Nancy needs to think about, of asking for a public defender. So at least she has some representation until things can get switched. So that way she's not there standing by herself, trying to do a criminal defense. And probably good advice. I'm not too sure whether she can get another lawyer by next week. And so that may be an option. But going in and representing herself, or having a public defender go in and represent, saying, look, we didn't even get discovery. We need to have all this information. Either dismiss it or give us a continuance so that way we can figure this out. or if we have a new lawyer, she, gets the funding to get a different lawyer between the retainer, what's left of the retainer, and some additional funds. We just don't know. We don't. It's kind of pretty scary to be on the receiving end of this. One, because of the ridiculousness of it, but two, because it's her life.
Yeah,
And
there's freedom. That
it's freedom at stake.
One of the potential penalties for this particular situation is going to jail for up to 200 or 364 days of jail time.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, this is all my TV lawyerism. Judges in a criminal situation, judges tend to, they're going to either test you to see whether or not you have the mental fortitude to be a pro se in a criminal case, but they're also going to very highly dissuade you from doing that. And my expectation is that this is a reasonable reason. I'm not sure if I can use those two terms together, but that a judge would be understanding that if for health reasons my attorney had to resign, I should be able to get continuance rather easily. My expectation is that there would be that would be a very low bar to get over.
But the process of doing that, or I'll answer, does her lawyer need to request to step down due to ill health? I don't know. I've never even had a speeding ticket, so I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea how that works. But if he does, or if she needs help with the process, as I said, I don't think a public defender probably would be the way to go in the long run, but at least this next week, having somebody on your side versus just yourself.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's the bridge, right? Just let's bridge from now until sometime in the future. But there's an immediate need that you're going to have to be in court in a very short amount of time. Let's make sure that you've got the proper defense for the day. That doesn't mean that has to be your defense for the remainder of time in this situation.
Because somebody way more smarter than myself, audit, could answer. I mean, could she call Monday and tell the SA's office just that, and then say I'm looking for another one and get a continuance before the hearing date? I don't know. And but it should be an option.
Yeah. I agree. And now the thing that I'm worried about that particular scenario is that would the state's attorney, because we've seen them do deceptive elements already, would the state's attorney say, yeah, that's no problem, and then all of a sudden not move the hearing, not tell the judge they have an agreement, and all of a sudden Nance doesn't show up and there's a default judgment that goes in. I don't know if you can have a default judgment in a criminal case, but
yeah.
Something else I want to kind of reiterate here, and you may have heard it as we talked about this story, that this attorney, he is well educated. He was absolutely capable of doing what's going, he is absolutely capable of doing the needful here. What really struck me was that how friendly he was. And I understand that lawyers have to be friendly to one another because they need to negotiate back and forth in regards to what's going on there. So it makes sense that you would have that kind of relationship. But it definitely, he did not seem like a strong advocate for Nance. He was there going through the motions in some of the situations. Those are my words, not Nance's words, but that idea that you have to be somewhat skeptical of the next lawyer, right? What makes you think the next lawyer isn't also going to know who Joe Cicala is, and that it's a good idea to be on good terms with Joe Cicala? He's a very wealthy individual. He runs a $1 billion trading platform, right? So he is somebody that you don't want to lock horns with, and he can probably make things tough on attorneys and knows people that could make things tough on attorneys.
And I have family members in Chicago, and I do know, several people in the higher up C levels there. And I went through quite a few different lawyers that I know of and was referred to. None of them wanted to take it on. And that's amazing because it's a stupid case.
Yep.
It's stupid. So why wouldn't a lawyer, even if they could go do the anti-slap? This, to me, and as I said, I'm not the lawyer, but to me, this would be a perfect anti-slap. A denial of First Amendment rights. And
Correct.
and no takers. They're afraid. They're intimidated.
That I think it was in the Masterson case that they had a hard time getting a second chair there, for principally the same reasons, that people still have the memory of Scientology being such a litigious organization and the fair gaming that, if I recall, there was some conversation about struggles to get second chair on the Danny Masterson defense, or on the
There's
prosecutor's
definitely
side.
precedents. There's
Yeah.
definitely precedents.
So,
Yeah.
all right, folks, I just kind of want to reiterate this, that we want to figure out, how do we find information? If there's anything you can share, Nance's emails are public. If you need to get a hold of her channel, right, we've at Nance Drew, we've seen her link tree. You can also get a hold of her, I think, through mechanisms on there. Whether it's financial or whether it's knowing anybody that can help in these situations, I think it's really important that we do whatever we can to support her, because again, it's the old, well, that's not my problem. She's the one that's in trouble, not me. Well, eventually, they knock down her, and then all of a sudden, okay, great, who's the next one? And if everybody takes that position of, well, it's not me yet, so I don't worry about it, by the time it is you, there's nobody left in the community to defend you.
That's the key word, is yet. They've
Yeah.
been going through enough people and enough that they'll start taking people down. And it's like they're getting smarter on this, on instigators in the web environment.
Absolutely. There have been times where we've seen very suspect people at the Chicago org, they are seemingly unhoused, and for some reason they have free reign to go in and out of that organization. That is not the prototypical Scientologist or candidate for Scientology. That is not who Scientology is trying to bring into the organization. That person has no money and therefore cannot buy books, go on course, right? I will say that sometimes if you're socioeconomically deprived, you might be a candidate for Sea Org because, great, there's a job. But these people are going in and they are being fair-weathered and safe-pointed by Scientology, and they're probably getting tips and tricks to say, hey, can you go out there and go do this and go do that, right? Or follow this person around in regards to what's going on there.
And they're getting their lawyers paid for when it does happen. Look at that Joey versus William Good.
Yep.
Yep. He wasn't in Scientology.
Yeah. Serge, Michael both saying, right, that they're the people, and Audit LA is getting heat in regards to what's going on here right now. Again, I don't see them as litigious as they used to be. Now, they're going to start the lawsuit. I don't think they're going to go to anything, but they're going to try to run you dry on continuations, lawyer fees, all of those kinds of things. Eventually, there will be a settlement because they do not want the discovery. Now, I will say it'll be interesting to see what comes off of that thumb drive that we've got there, if there's anything juicy.
Oh, I'd be
in
itching
that
to see
discovery.
that. I want to see that so bad. Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a company, or it's an organization, it's a business, straight up, that will do anything they can to intimidate you, and they don't really honor that. Is it legal or not? Right? They're going to cross that line. They are very good. They've got a long history of practice with that, in that they can disconnect themselves from who they're asking to invoke any kind of crimes on their behalf. So, what else do we have
Well, just looking at her different options, I'm going to go to the very end of the slide there.
Oh.
Just alternate plans. She
Yeah, let me
doesn't.
show you that. Yeah, I think I think you were gonna kind of go through some of the items here, right?
Right. So, the discovery delays, trying to get the discovery, trying to figure out what's in their discovery. There might not even be anything in that discovery.
Right.
That's a great idea, audit. I would ask for a change of venue, a different county. Do you think that would make a difference there?
100%. Right. That I think in all legal systems there's an element of corruption. In Chicago, it is much higher than anybody would imagine. Right. I want to pull this one up real quick because I feel poorly now that I hope Nance is doing okay, right? And I will tell you that I know that she's struggling, that this is a very challenging time. She's gotten terrible news about something that's going to affect her in the immediate time. But I will say, when I talk to her personally, we have talked about this. But yeah, I hope that we're all sending positive vibes, whatever that means to you in this scenario. That we're standing up behind Nance as a human being in need as well right now, not just somebody who is under the gun from Scientology.
It truly could be any one of us, and it is quite a few of us. And I say us because it's a we. I am we. But it's not, I've been dealing with small things here and there, but certainly not that. And I just can't imagine having to choose between my First Amendment right and my voice and having to have a misdemeanor, a track in my record, have to stay away from a place, have to possibly give up my livelihood. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But that's scary.
100%. Yep. So this is something that I'm going to say that, Serge, this weekend, and I know that I'm gonna say this, that when a police officer is on scene for an event or an incident, they have to be there for whatever that event is. And the idea that let's say somebody abused or let's say somebody pushed or punched one of the Scientologists, it's not okay for us to say, well, they're child abusers and they're human traffickers. Now, I do whatever I can to always make sure that I'm telling the police officers, here's what you're defending in this space. But my expectation is that can't change the way that they're behaving in this particular incident. I do hope, just like when we say it to the Scientologists themselves, that this is something that officer is going to bed at night and thinking, let me look up this organization. What are they doing here? Right.
I know Joe Cool talked about the law and the policy of the Chicago Police Department, and he gave a specific code, and I can't remember. I wish he was on, but I needed to see it. I need to see what he was saying because I wrote it down and I must have wrote it down wrong. So that they can't impede First Amendment rights.
Correct. Yes. That it was part of their policy, so it's in their rules that they can't do that. And by the way, it's not just their policy; it actually is the constitutional law that says.
Well, yeah, right. But if they're not going to follow the constitutional law for everything else, who cares? But if it's in their policy, maybe they will.
Correct. Yes.
Who knows? Doesn't hurt to be able to, when you're going through things like that, when you're looking at whether it's the Constitution or federal law, the Department of Justice, or their own city policy and city ethics, you have to start hitting them with everything sometimes.
100%. Yep.
Yep.
And we, like I said, I don't mean to tell anybody that it's okay to overlook their crimes, right? You'll oftentimes hear me challenge somebody that says that when I tell them that this is a human trafficking, child abusing cult, they'll say, but it works for me. And I'm like, well, in that situation, what you're basically saying is that since it's not your child that's being abused, it's okay. Since it's not your family that's being human trafficked, it's okay, right? That's basically what you just said to me. So you're okay with human trafficking and child abuse as long as it doesn't happen to you or to your family. And those are the things that we have to remind people of all the time, that it's not okay to say that the organization does well for me. And by the way, I would challenge whether or not the organization does well for them, but that it doesn't assuage the idea that it's still a crime and they're a criminal organization that is doing this.
Yeah, I loved that video that Aaron put up the other day where the prior kids were saying, but we had horses, we had baseball fields. It was fun for me. Yeah, okay, sure.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to say that this, I think, is an important element. And I remember early on, and I'm very grateful for my mods, whenever I would, early on in my conversations with police officers, I would answer their questions. And even though they seemed innocuous, the moderator is always reminding me, don't answer any of their questions, right? That it's never going to be a positive outcome for you in that situation.
Yeah. I guess I've never really, I mean, I know many people, and especially in our circles, that have had negative results and negative influence from police, but I've never, I mean, I've got relatives and friends and family, and I don't think I've ever had a negative influence. So, it's hard for me to judge that. It's hard for me to see that color.
Yeah.
But it does happen. I know it does.
On this one, I'm gonna answer it two ways. If the question is this where SPTV Foundation, and I would say SPTV Foundation or the Aftermath, this typically isn't one of the places where they should be spent. That I don't think that by their charter, this is a place where they're going to spend money. Now, if you're asking about the SPTV community or collective of people that have a common purpose, right? The open source elements, yes, that's precisely what we're doing here tonight, right? That we're trying to help educate and bring attention and awareness to a situation of one of the people in our community is in need right now.
100% Amy M. and 100% Surge.
Yeah, this one, it's amazing to me how again, when the officer was talking to me over the weekend, my typical question was, right, if you have evidence that I've done something wrong, let me know. Otherwise, shut up. Right. I just don't want to hear what you're talking about. So I sometimes make it a little bit challenging for the police because, again, I don't want to answer their questions in these situations. But it is amazing how much time they will spend with Scientology and Scientologists when they are on scene, and then they'll come out and they'll cop-splain to us, right? Hey, here's what they don't want you doing, and here's the things you can't be doing. And it's like, that's excellent. If you see me do one of those things, let me know. Until then, STFU, right? What else do we have? Yeah, I see the Graham Berry down there, but I think that somebody that's based out in LA tried to get a hold of Graham, and Graham just doesn't have any resources that he knows about here in Chicago. So.
And working through all the research and all the different octopus tentacles of the Church of Scientology, I'm pretty impressed at how much more involved they are and safe pointed they are with Chicago than even probably LAPD. LAPD is an old hack. They've been in there for 50 plus years. And it's like Chicago is fresh meat to the Church of Scientology.
Yeah. And I agree with this, that
Yep.
they do groom, that early on, I was able to see them bring superintendent after supervisor after supervisor into the org. So there'd be an incident, trespassing, or they hurt our feelings, and the police would come out. And after the incident was over, the police would go back to their car, and then they come back into Scientology, and you'd hear them say, "Here, let me tell you about this." And again, that grooming is as an appropriate a term, but I always look at it as safe pointing. But it's the same thing, right? That they're showing the police that, look, we're for a drug-free world. We're for human rights, right? The way to happiness, the way to wealth. These are things that you can really, that it's so innocuous and seemingly helpful at the lowest levels in Scientology, and then you've got yourself into the boiling frog problem once you get in there. But whether we call it grooming or safe point, now children are groomed, right? 100%. That they are being groomed, and I worry so much that we see children go into that organization on a daily basis. We saw somebody come out of there on Monday that came out. I would say it was a 14, 15-year-old kid that came out of there. We've seen Scientology parents bring their child to the door, because I'm guessing that either it's that the Scientology adult wanted to go do something, go see a movie, go have dinner, whatever the case may be, but bring the child to the door, then kind of push the child in the door, right? That's this idea that, oh, go talk to your mom or go talk to the Scientology, whatever the case may be. But he's a known staff member, and this happens fairly frequently. What is that child being taught? And what are the things that become normal to that child because of his time being spent inside of that organization and with an adult who is part of that organization?
Yeah, and look at the, like 2 weeks or so after this had happened, where the officer came. I got a video of it, or I took a clip of it, where he came, he went in, got a bucket of water, came back out, washed the chalk himself, and then took the bucket back in. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, that was just totally, yeah.
That same day, that same officer, his name is Officer Dolan, or Sergeant Dolan. Sergeant Dolan is a PRICK. He will not identify, and that is part of Chicago Police Department policy. In the past, when I finally gone up to his car and I said, "Will you please identify?" He said, "Why? Why?" And when he finally, I said, "Well, I know you're Officer Dolan." He goes, "You already know, so why do I have to identify?" So, because it's your policy, right? That you have to adhere to your policy. I do not have to adhere to your policy, and you can't have any expectation that I know who you are. What if I'm a forgetful person, right? On the same day that he came out with the bucket of water, and by the way, the bucket of water was very ineffective because he just kind of splashed it down from the top, so it sets the chalk, right? One of the other protesters and demonstrators out there had put some signs on the sidewalk, and we had been told we can't attach these to anything. We can't do anything of that nature. The sergeant himself picked up each one of those signs. And again, it is just, I've got a video coming out on the other channel, right, on Wendy Watches the Cops, where I'm showing that the cops are actually working, not friends with, they're doing the work of the cult of Scientology, right? That why didn't the Scientologists come out and scrub that sidewalk? Why is the police officer doing the work of the church?
And what would, I mean, we know that's wrong, but is there a policy that they're definitely disobeying? Or is it like a color of law thing, or is it?
Yeah. Something I would say is that, let's say there was a cat up a tree and they helped get the cat out of the tree. It's seemingly helpful to a victim, right? But I would say that that's much more identifiable as a predicament in which you're doing something helpful. When you are, the work that they were doing was, to Joe Cool's point, that was blocking First Amendment right. So they were actively acting against the civil rights of that person to be able to protest or demonstrate in public.
Correct.
We need to make that. I need to make that complaint as well. I've got to figure out what the time. Mona, I'm gonna send you. I have a PDF of the Chicago policies. I will send you that
Okay.
because I want you to be a better reader than me.
I will definitely take a look at it and peruse through it and get what we need out of it. And Audit and I spend quite a bit of time together. We end up going to the Board of Public Works. We do the police commission meetings, and they're all available for me online. I know I've talked with Crazy Love is Love, talking about, attending her city council meetings with her. I don't mind. I'm stuck here, and I actually enjoy that. I know that sounds kind of wackadoodle crazy, but I enjoy doing that. So if I can help you peruse through that, make complaints, attend your council meetings, let's get some word, let's make some noise. I don't mind
Yep.
doing that. And I think everybody that is part of, I know we're not all SPTV second gens, but we're all a community. We're all an open crowdsource. So let's all make this together. Let's make this noise together.
Yes, I'm in.
Okay.
What was I going to say? I keep on seeing some of the statements about kids here, and right there's the big kerfuffle of are they in Sea Org, and whether or not they are or aren't, to me is somewhat irrelevant. Although I would say if you want to argue that specific point, great, argue that specific point. Make no mistake, there are children in Scientology. We see people going in there. Easter was just horrific. We were seeing 3-year-olds and people going in there just to get a jelly bean. And we went to the grocery store and just to buy a bag of jelly beans to say, don't go in there, right? If you want jelly beans, I'll give you jelly beans on that, because they were advertising that. But we know that they're going through a purification rundown in there. We see them with in Chicago, I don't know if this is happening everywhere else, they have a light blue colored duffel bag that they carry with them. And it's every time that I see some, it looks like if you were going to the gym, it's your gym bag. And it seems to be that there's a purification rundown kit that you get these days, so that you can bring all of the stuff you need to for the rundown. Because they would do the rundown, and then usually you do the rundown, and then I think you go on course afterwards, and they'd have to come back out to their car after doing the sauna and grab their books and their study materials. I'm wondering if it was a way to say, here, let's get all this stuff in once, so you don't have to walk past the protesters more than once in a given day.
Huh, that's interesting. I wonder if any of the, like, Confident Chris or Audit usually goes late, so I don't know if they'd be doing the rundown that late at night.
Yeah.
But Kelly, I think Kelly was during the day, or MD Media, if they saw a correlation to that.
Yep. All right, folks. I'm not sure if we've got a lot of additional information. Mona, if there's anything else that you think we should cover, if there's any questions, let's give everybody a little bit of time to ask some questions. That, listen, we concentrate on one another when we're here, so we're probably not looking at the chat as well as we should have. But if you've got some questions that you think Mona or I are able to answer, please add them in there, and I'll try to bring them up on screen.
I have some homework for those that like to research and do due diligence. Is the Dream Exchange. I would like to see how far the tentacles go into, like, that Gentile guy that was just arrested, Gentile guy that was arrested, and the chargeback 911s, all of that. Somebody needs to do some digging into the people of Dream Exchange.
Absolutely.
See how far that goes back.
Yes. And by the way, I know that Shannon did some work there, and I think Michael Andreas might have helped, and he's somebody he's a very helpful person that's in my audience quite a bit. That it seems like they might have been pre-selling some of. It seemed like there might have been some illegal transactions that were going on there. I have not done enough research. I don't know anything about it, but I would say that it's not that hard for me to understand how an organization that it was founded by a Scientologist might have some illegal and deceptive practices going on.
And I'm wondering if he's actually paying commissions on those funds and exchanges over at Dream Exchange to all of his Scientology employees.
Yeah. I am never going to be surprised by the Bernie Madoff story that comes out of that situation, right? That
Yeah.
I feel that
That's what's so silly and scary is you start hearing some of this stuff, and now that I've been into it for 8-9 months, I'm like, oh well, yeah, it doesn't shock me anymore. That's pathetic
right.
that they're misbehaving, illegal, child abusing, child trafficking cult doesn't even surprise me anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And
No
they're
one, thank you, Gentili.
yeah. No, by the way, if you can ever get a conversation with no one, you want to get a conversation with no one. She's awesome. Patrick Skinner's another one that, if you want to know something, they're very helpful in regards to what goes on in the world of Scientology, and they've been very helpful to both me and Declared Dave as very active participants, helping us understand what they've remember and recall from the cultic behaviors. And I appreciate that we've had some former Scientologists in here, and I really appreciate that. You know, I really do hang on every word that you're all saying, because it's the thing that allows me, when I'm demonstrating, to put back into the Scientologist community their own vernacular, their own vocabulary in regards to what's going on. One of the things that I really loved about this past weekend, where they would continually call the police on me, is that they would get irate when I would tell people that they're Scientology. And I'm like, you're a Scientologist. How could you possibly be upset that I said Scientology? And then with the Dianetics book, I would read the passage on, I would say, this is their book, right? And a 7-year-old child should accept a passionate kiss from an older man because she pulled it in from a prior life. That's what this book says, right? And how do you get upset with me for telling you what's inside that book?
Right. Right, definitely. And I very much appreciate the folks that were in Scientology and that have left, because their viewpoint is just, it's crucial for us to understand. And I know I always say it is like Serge and Lara and Nora and Liz and Dylan and all the folks that have gone through so much. Amber's just become a very good
Yep.
friend of mine, and just I want to fight this battle with you, not for you, but with you. So let's just continue on.
Love that. Love that. All right, folks. Let's see. Yeah, I see that we've got the SPTV Foundation. Please, if you can, and remember that they accept money, but they also accept other forms of volunteerism, right? Are you somebody that can drive? Are you somebody that can get somebody to an airport? Are you somebody that can house somebody for a period of time? Are you somebody that can help train somebody? Because if we think about it, I have yet to see a former Scientologist who is not an incredibly industrious person, right? And one thing that I do like, word clearing, is that there are some practices at those lowest levels that make absolute perfect sense. And these are hardworking people, right? How do we help get them out and get them retrained, which almost takes nothing with some of their, I'll say, common sense or pragmatic, practical abilities in the world. You're going to find that I think they're going to be some of the most hardworking people, and their objective almost the entire time they were in was, how do I solve and survive this problem? And in any business, you want people that are good problem solvers. And I think that this is, that is something that comes out of I notice it from all of the ex-Scientologists and former Scientologists that I'm seeing.
Well, thank you, Windy City. Thank you very much for hosting this. I know Nancy's got her plate full right now trying to get this, and she's got that stupid gag order. And, maybe another way is to start playing her old videos, so that way she has some stream time on the older videos. I know it doesn't make a lot of difference for monetary with the monetization, but it's something.
Absolutely. Right. And I want to say that if your YouTube money lags, right now, again, I would 100% encourage you to just watch her playlists all night long. You know, yeah, it's pennies, big deal, but it cost you nothing. And I love that we're getting Grant Cardone's advertising money and David Miscavige's advertising money, and that's going to be helpful there. But if you have other ways of supporting, right, that's why we show the Linktree process that's out there. So, you know, I was going to bring. I'm sure we're all aware of Nance's channel, but here
Oh,
you can see
that's
Nance's
probably a
channel,
great idea.
right? And then let's see here.
It's a good point, Audit. Yep, a color of law offense can send a cop to prison. Can you imagine a Chicago Police Department guy, officer going to prison for washing chalk?
Right. That would that would be awesome.
That'd be funny.
Make sure that if you're not already subscribed, get over to Fat Grammy, subscribe to her as well. And folks, I do apologize. I do try to work on this. I am a dinosaur, and I tend to use my assumptive gender pronouns. I mean, no offense by it, and I try to, when I'm reminded, use the desired pronouns. So, okay. All right. I've got nothing else. Mona, thank you so much for being here tonight. You know, it's very helpful. Again, I do, you know, I'm going to say that I love when I've got the educational resources of you and the research abilities of you, Audit LA. And I need to lean on you guys more in regards to how do we more effectively hamper and stop this cult from doing the harms that they've done. So.
Definitely. As I said, thank you for hosting. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. If we can, Lorraine or any of the mods, if we can go ahead and do a room raid, if anybody's out there. I don't know who we've got out in SPTV Nation. And worst case scenario, let's go ahead and do a player's choice, right? I think this is interesting. So if you do downvote, what'll happen is that you'll stop getting those ads. What you're basically saying is, I don't like the Grant Cardone ad, and you'll stop getting that ad. So he doesn't have to spend money on that. But yeah, so you don't. Downvoting might not be the most effective element, although if you wanted to get rid of it, that'd be great.
And I thank everybody that's over on my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Much love to Nora, Serge, and Audit, and Anne,
Absolutely.
and everybody else.
All right, let's go head over to Dodge. Let's go see how Dodge is doing. I think that it might be his last day in LA, or maybe he's already returned home. So, but I know he was kind of closing down his LA time. Mona, it's been a pleasure having you here. Everybody in the audience, thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, share whenever you can. Again, I'm a big fan of let's grow the entire community. I have no desire to have a bigger slice of a small pie. I want to make it a big pie. So, all right, folks.
Ditto, ditto.
You all
Good
take
night,
care.
you guys. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.